Forum, City of Aven. 6 days before the Ides of November, all civic and business activities stopped. The day was one of the nefasti, cursed days in most of Enton's opinions, and of the nefasti considered amongst the worst. On this day, the Temple of Janus held a sacred and harrowing ritual, opening its subterranean chambers to priests and a few stalwart worshippers. They opened, too, the mundus, the umbilical cord that connected the living world to the beyond. On this day, spirits could walk abroad. Karina sniffed in disdain as she crossed a quiet forum towards the temple. Fearful fools. The spirits that passed through the mundus were the blessed dead. Well, blessed or at least indifferent. It took a different sort of power to call forth fiends. The gates of Janus stood open, for Aven was at war, that matter in Iberia. Well, it was almost always something. The gates had rarely been closed since their construction, but this time they spread wide for the Iberian venture. Karina had no care for it, except that it unsettled people here at home. A tool she could use, another knife she could twist in the guts of this city. She bowed her head respectfully as she entered. The priests knew her face, and she wore the black-bordered tunic and mantle of a mage. In the public eye, she was a humble devotee pledged to Fortuna and Janus. Some few might have heard more of her story, one they would deem sad, a tragedy, a broken bird. They had no idea. Karina had broken herself, not been broken. She self-shattered over and over, taking power from every rip and tear and crack in her soul. The priests of Janus, they liked their orderly divides, their doorways, their gates, either open or closed, so simple, either forward or back, so clear. They forgot, or else they willfully ignored, the true potency of fracture bestowed in the full flood blessings of its strongest and truest patron deity, not Janus or Fortuna, but the Lady Discordia. No temples to her, not here, and no priests, no worshippers known to the world. Her cult had been banished more than once in Aven's history, most recently by Dictator Ocella. She may not be welcome, but there is no keeping her out. Aven sought control, regulation, order, forgetting that its past and its future were written in the jagged lines of chaos. Like so many who dared the Temple of Janus on this day, Karina carried a basket full of offerings, though she kept a cloth tucked over her goods. The priests of Janus would not understand. Fruits of the harvest, they expected, bright and colorful and fresh. The first citrons, the last grapes, soft persimmons and sweet pears, and, most blessed of all, the jewels of pomegranates. What Karina offered cost her so much more than any peasant's toil or patrician's coin. Blighted stalks of wheat and blistered fruits, white and powdery and crisping. This, the harvest of her soul, the proof of her efforts on Discordia's behalf. Each one the product of another exquisite fissure in her essence. The air went from crisp to cold as she descended beneath the temple, surrounded by stones which had not seen the sunlight since they had been laid. Had anyone thought to harness the power when they were cut from whatever mountain quarry gave them birth? Likely not. Karina sometimes felt no one but she saw the glorious potential in every day. Everything in the world broke, eventually. Everything decayed and went to the realm of shadow, but first it must dissolve in some fashion, splitting apart or sloughing off, or with a grand sudden snap. So much power for those willing to grasp it. She reached out, shifting the weight of her basket to one hip and trailing her fingers over the stones and mortar. Her skin snagged so gently over the bumpy surface. Karina relished the tug of rough stone against her softness, a reminder. You can build from broken things, yes, but they will always still be broken. Temples, mosaics, entire cities, they are made of jagged pieces, and even if you smooth them down, they know what they are in their depths, and that they will never be the same again. A thing once shattered cannot be made whole.
Of a lot of change when a society is deciding who are we going to be, what kind of a people are we going to be, and maybe that's the forming of a society or a big shift. And so the Aven cycle takes place in what in our world is towards the end of the Roman Republic. They're expanding a lot. They're bringing in a lot of people from all over the Mediterranean, and some people are all about that because, yeah, money, awesome, bring in everybody, everybody's money spends. And other people, hey,
I am so sorry.
And they're very against bringing in any of the immigrant populations. They're also against but the same people, curiously, were perfectly happy to use the enslavement practices on their country farms. But they didn't let them come into the city and have having any influence on the political structure there. So this is a moment of big change in the society, and I like finding pressure points like that I can then exacerbate with magic. Magic literalizes so many power dynamics, has potential to really like put that lens on things. And so I like finding the places where that is supposed to juice. Awesome. We're gonna back up. Introduce yourself.
The gods blessing our decision to uproot ourselves and risk ourselves to bring you a better life. This was her mother's usual refrain when she wanted to unload some guilt on Nephili's shoulders. Nephili barely remembered Ithacum or the sea voyage that had brought them to their new home, but sometimes her mother acted as though it had been done all at Nephili's urging. In truth, it had been her father's notion, and even more truth, the notion of the Aventan magistrate working in Ithacum whose children had taken a liking to their tutor. In Ithacum, the magistrate had seemed unimaginably wealthy, and Nephili's mother had no doubt envisioned herself living in a grand domus, part of a large and prosperous household. Her husband, the well-respected scholar, teaching language and arithmetic to future luminaries of Aventan society. Once in Aven, it became apparent that the magistrate was barely clinging to the bottom rung of the senatorial class, an extraneous third son with almost no wealth to go with his grand name. Nephili's family had been obliged to find their own lodgings, her father to take additional tutoring appointments among social climbing families, and Nephili and her mother to do some cleaning work in the building in exchange for a break on the rent.